Hello, bridge builders! I'm here with some exciting news. The first volume of interviews is now available on Amazon.com. The link can be found at eatlunchandboardgame.com. I promise that all proceeds from sales of this book will go right back into this podcast and channel. Whether that is new and better audio equipment for the podcast, or video equipment for the YouTube channel, or even more games to review, the money will not be wasted. Click over to Amazon and get your copy of Eat Lunch and Board Game, the first course today. And thank you for supporting the show. All right, welcome back to Eat Lunch and Board Game. I'm your host, Adam Collins, and with me today is game designer Chris Pender. How you doing, Chris?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Oh, trying to figure out what's going on with this weather. We went from 90s down to the 50s again, so
wow, we're swinging up here too in Oregon.
This year has just been crazy weather-wise.
Yeah, we've been in the 60s. We're going to go up to 90s on Tuesday.
Yeah, we're going to be back up into the 90s again next week. I don't know. I don't know whether to turn the air conditioning on, the heater on, open the windows, close the windows, batten down the hatches. I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, Chris, I came across your name and your game, The Game of Real Life, while reading a book called It's All a Game by Tristan Donovan. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I've mainly sold my board game at street fairs. Here in Eugene, we have a little street fair called Saturday Market. And it was started by hippies back in the 70s, 1970, I think specifically. And they were kind of rediscovering handmade crafts. So they started with pottery and woodworking and jewelry. And it's evolved and it's lasted now 50 years. And I came up with the idea of the game and I developed it. I got a prototype, but I didn't really have the $25,000 that you need to get it manufactured. So I thought, well, what if I just hand make it? And so I've been selling ever since for 20 years, 23 years at this handcrafted market. So I handcraft the games. And I was at up in Portland Saturday Market's the same idea up in Portland. And that's where Tristan Donovan just came up to my booth and told me that he was writing this book. And he was very interested in my game because it really fed into his chapter on the game of life. And so he gave me a quick interview right there at a street fair.
Just, hi, my name is Tristan Donovan. I decided right here, right now, I want to interview you about your game.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's awesome. So for my listeners who don't know, the book, it's called It's All a Game by Tristan Donovan, and it kind of chronicles the history of board gaming, but not in necessarily a straight linear this game happened and this game happened type of order. And there is a section in there about Milton Bradley and the game of life, and then how it was redone multiple times over. And then it talked about this game by a guy named Chris that created a game because you thought the game of life was not very realistic.
Yeah, he did a really amazing write-up on my game that he really captured the whole history of it. That I played the game a lot as a kid. I really enjoyed the game. It seemed like there were Monopoly people and there's life people, and I was a life person.
Yeah,
so
that definitely is. That's definitely true.
Yeah, there is a storyline going on. And so it's, I became an actor. So I like the story. I like the plot. And so there was a plot to life. But then as I got older, I just started thinking of other things that could be in the game. And one of the first ones that he mentions that he picked up on was the Vietnam War, because when I was a kid, Vietnam was going on, and I have 3 older sisters. And I remember the night we watched the draft lottery. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Have you ever seen it?
No, I don't think I have. I know what you're talking about, but no, I have not.
Very creepy. It's very creepy because it was literally like, Powerball. there was the Secretary of Defense, and right next to him, he had this big bowl of ping pong balls. And on each ping pong ball was a date. And so he would reach into the bowl and he would pull out a ping pong ball and it would say like June 6th. And then he'd pull in another one, September 22nd, and then another one, December 3rd. And what it was trying to make it fair so that the first 100 ping pong balls got drafted if you were between 18 and 25. And it had a big impact on me. Like I said, I have 3 older sisters, so they were worried about their boyfriends getting drafted, but I was still young. And that's when I first thought, oh, they should have that in the game of life. Why don't they have a space that says you're drafted, you have to go to Vietnam? And, it would be totally real and it's totally a wild thing. But it would actually fit in the game because the lottery was just luck. And a lot of the game of life is just luck, whether you land on it or you don't.
Right. It's exactly how game design happens. You see something and it sparks an idea. And so I reached out, found your website, bought the game, and I've played it a few times. And I think it's, like you said, it's kind of luck, but it's also, there's a lot of decision making in it. And what I liked about it was kind of, if you approach it kind of like you would approach a character when doing any kind of RPG, right? Like any kind of Dungeons and Dragons, create this character and then go through the game of real life, making decisions based on what would this character that I've created do in this situation. Really. And the diary is a good idea because you can kind of write out all your, you're writing out this story, like you said, this plot, this story of your character. And what would my character do when confronted by this choice?
Yeah, I love it getting into playing the character.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that in the creative process of making a game, I had to make for your. I don't know if your listeners can picture this, but most of the game is taken care of on a score sheet, and I needed a box for smiley faces because that's happiness, and then I needed a couple of columns, and I needed a place to put your name, and then I had a lot of extra space on this score sheet, and so I just sort of thought, oh, I'll put some lines and just say diary. And then I took the game over to test with some coworkers, and they were playing Mad Libs. And so they immediately got into the diary and just started writing up all these stories. And it's like, oh, my son has become a doctor. And it was like, that's not even in the game. But this person had created this amazing story. And the diary has really taken off. And it's amazing to me that it was just a last minute idea to throw it in there.
That's awesome. Because I find that to be kind of my favorite part, like I said, just kind of creating this character and then writing out their story as I work my way across this board. And it's just been a lot of fun for me to sit there and play different characters. And this time I'm going to go at it and make all the worst decisions because I'm a rebellious little kid and blah, and then, I die about, 10 steps in and I don't get very far. I don't get very far. And then other times, sure, you can complete the game if you try to make all the right decisions. And if all you're trying to do is complete the game, then sure. But if you're going to do it and go about it as for like a ride and creating a story and creating a character, man, you can get really sucked into this game.
Yeah, and I think that's where it gets into, like I said, I was a professional actor and I studied acting and theater, and getting people to get that feeling of creating a character and playing the character and making decisions based on the character, not yourself. I think that's what makes it kind of fun. And it's something I've always enjoyed as an actor.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So you make all these basically by hand. I bought I hate to say this, but I bought the cheapest version, which is just, it came to me in a rolled up tube with a bag of supplies and I went for it. But I also do a lot of print and play games. So for me, it was like, oh, I'll just buy this thing. I'll mount it. So I've mounted mine on a piece of foam core board, and everything. And, but there's other ways.
The term now they call it print and play.
Yeah. So there's some games you can buy that are just print and play. things that you can just like if they're just a simple smaller deck of cards, you can just print and play. So you buy the PDF from somebody and they send you the PDFs and you print them out at your house and then laminate them and cut them out. And now you've got
Yeah,
the,
I've started doing that, sending the game to Europe because it's becoming so expensive
oh, yeah.
to ship the game that I've sold the PDF a couple of times now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually where I got the idea a long time ago. Did you ever hear of uh, cheap ass games?
Yep.
Yeah. So I remember when I first started, I found cheap ass games,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I loved that concept, especially since I was hand making the board in the box.
Absolutely.
To be able to just sell the print, I loved it. I was like, yes, I'll just throw the print in a bag or a little tube and sell it, and it doesn't take me time because the board in the box takes such a long time to make, that I love selling the print.
Yeah. Well, that's what I bought
And
was
they're
just
the
the
ones that
print.
started that for me, was cheap ass games.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got, oh my gosh, like half a dozen of his games downloaded and printed off. Kill Dr. Lucky and Button Men are two of my favorite cheap ass games.
Yeah.
So, what got you in? So, kind of already blown through a lot of these questions, but
Oh,
how did you get into gaming? You said you played the game of life with your sisters and family growing up.
yeah, I played the game of life, and then my family was big into cards, kind of old-fashioned cards. And then my friends in junior high and high school, we started playing board games, and we would play like Axis and Allies and
Oh yeah,
Risk. And I remember I would on Friday I would go home with my friend. I would go to his house, and we would start playing, and we would play the whole weekend. I would just sleep over, and it was a regular thing. We just played board games constantly.
yeah. Axis and Allies. My neighbor had it, and we would definitely start Friday night, and we'd usually play all through Friday and Saturday, um,
Yeah, yeah, it was a
switching
blast.
sides, and yeah. Oh, such a good game.
Yeah, and then it was sad because right when I was a senior in high school, Dungeons and Dragons came out, and so I love the concept, but I just never got into it because I went to college and there was no group playing. And so if it had come out a few years earlier, we probably would have gotten into it, but I just didn't have a group. But I love the concept of the role playing.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't get into it till late, until actually till recently, and so that's where when I started playing the game of real life, I'm like, man, this is kind of like a all-in-one role-playing game where you just play and see how far your character can get through this board before they run out of happiness.
Yeah. Or no, health. You, you never lose your happiness. I remember I had to make that decision as the game designer. You have to make these major decisions. It's like, well, can they lose happiness if they're sad? And like, no, I think you never lose happiness. I decided, because it becomes a memory of a happy time. But if something sad happens, that's where I interpret sadness in the game as a loss of health, kind of a mental health loss. Like if you become an orphan, you lose 5 health points, but you don't lose happiness. Yeah, it's fun making the game. You have to work out all these details.
Oh yeah, and every decision has a reason behind it, and it's what makes the game design so intriguing and so much fun.
Yeah.
So, do you play other games now?
Yeah. I remember one of your questions was Catan. How do
Yeah,
you pronounce it? Or how do you pronounce it?
yeah. I say Catan.
Oh, Catan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're in the
I guess
Catan group.
I'm the Catan group. Yeah. But I play Catan. I like that. I love that. It's brilliant. And for you specifically, for lunch and board games, I actually played Milton Bradley's original game the other day. Finally, I found it online and I found the instructions. And see, the original game that he made was in 1860, and I can send you the PDF on it if you want. But it's not a bad little game, and it's pretty quick, for lunch. It's called the checkerboard game of life, and so it's a big checkerboard. and you start in the left bottom column at infancy, and you work your way up to the top right, which is happy old age. And you try to accumulate points with honor. He even had happiness in his game, and building wealth, got you points. But then happy old age got you a bonus of 50 points. But that wasn't a bad little quick game.
It's
And then I played
it's
a
always fun
game
to go
called
back and
Fuse.
see where it started.
Yeah.
Called what?
Yeah. Fuse. Have you played Fuse?
Oh yeah, the bomb defusing game.
Yeah, with the dice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and especially because it's pretty quick. It's like 10 minutes. But I play like Splendor. Have you played Splendor?
Absolutely. That's a great
Yeah, I
game.
love Splendor. And then we've been playing Terra Mystica, Dominion, and Puerto Rico, but those are longer games.
Yeah, those aren't one. Well, you might be able to fit Puerto Rico in an hour if everybody's on it, but that's more of a 90-minute game. It's one of those. It's one of those Friday lunch hours when nobody else is around. Like today being
Yeah.
Friday before Memorial Day weekend, while we're
Yeah.
recording this, and everybody's cleaned out of the office by lunch. That's the day to play a long game.
Yeah.
So, do you ever get on Kickstarter?
I haven't. And I
It's
need to
safer
do
that
it.
way.
What's that?
It's safer that way. Once you get on there and start looking and seeing what's going on out there, you just start buying everything.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I thought you meant, am I going to do a Kickstarter? It's something I got to do, because I would like to get the game manufactured. But
Sure.
two people have done something called the Game of Real Life, which is
Really?
frustrating for me because I've been doing this 20 years. But there's one up there right now, and he takes it even darker.
Wow, darker than yours.
Yeah, he has cards like you're depressed and contemplating suicide or something. He goes
Wow.
really dark.
No,
And he calls it
that's
Real
crazy.
Life, the board game. So,
Real life, the board game.
yeah, yeah, you could check it out.
That's awesome.
But yeah, yeah, I'm an old guy and I'm still like not that great with social media and the whole computer age. I'm still learning as I go, and the Kickstarter's on my list of things to do.
It's on your bucket list.
Yeah, yeah, because I want to take the game to the next level. But there is also the you know no, the sword of Damocles hanging over my head of a lawsuit. But I haven't had any problem, for 20 years. And I'm sure Hasbro knows about me.
I'm sure they have. I mean, they absolutely do. I mean, I'm sure somebody in Hasbro read the book, so somebody's got to know.
Oh, that's true. I never thought about Tristan's book. Yeah. I
So how many copies of the Game of Real Life do you think you've sold?
think about 40,000.
No
And
kidding.
yeah, but it's taken
That
me
is
20 years. So,
Yeah, but
and it's
still,
mainly the bag ones, the $10 ones. But still, hey, it's 20,000. What the hell?
that's incredible. All of them made by hand by you. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's the thing is about the whole handcrafting thing is it really is it's a kind of a wonderful uh, activity. I have a studio and I just put on documentaries on my TV, and then I make games, and you're working with your hands, and so it's kind of really enjoyable. I think that's why I've stayed with it so long, is that it's actually a very enjoyable thing. So, and you have to make some concessions when you start getting it manufactured, in terms of the board and everything. So, but it is an enjoyable craft, just doing crafting.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine. Like I said, I do a lot of the print and plays. I build a lot of box organizers and dice trays and dice towers and stuff out of foam core and stuff like that, and all kinds
Yeah,
of fun little nerdy gaming accessories.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of fun to put them together, you know. Bunch of tape
Absolutely.
and glue.
A lot of sewing needles to keep poking them through the
Yeah.
little,
Oh, you get into
hold everything
sewing. Oh,
together.
yeah, sewing's a big craft. That's, like the original craft was sewing.
Yeah.
That and knife making, I guess. But
I haven't got there yet. I'll get there eventually. Maybe.
yeah.
So when you play a game and there's certain colors to choose from, do you have a certain go-to color that you must try to be?
Oh, me? I gravitate towards orange because I'm from Akron, Ohio, which is close to Cleveland, and I think it's because of the Cleveland Browns, and so their colors are orange and brown. So I usually go for orange or yellow.
Nice. Those tend to be the ones that when I play, my friends have left. We have left over, so you'd fit right in with my group.
Oh,
You could
interesting.
definitely be. You could be the color you want.
Yeah, that's always a biggie.
So if people wanted to buy a copy of your game, the website is gameofreallife.com and they
Right,
can pick from three different levels, right?
right. Yeah, like you said, I'm hand making the board and the box like a traditional board game. Then you bought the what I call the economy. I call it the eco because to me it's economical and ecological. So it's to me it's the lowest carbon footprint, and it's just basically like buying a poster with the instructions and the tokens and the dice and everything you need to play, and that's only $10 with shipping and plus shipping. And then in the middle, I have a laminated game. So it's basically the poster laminated, and and it right now I'm right in transition. So the laminated one's only going to be up there about another couple of weeks, and then I'm transitioning over to I got the game printed onto banner material. So it's going to be nicer, and it's going to lay out flatter, better, basically. You know how you got those little bubbles in lamination?
Yeah.
So I'm finally going to get away from that. I got this banner material. I'm going to go for it. All these business decisions is the lamination is only like $3, but then this banner material is $7, and it's like, oh no, that's a big jump. But I want to go for it just because it's a nicer board. But yeah, those are the three: the eco, I call it the traveler tube, and then the whole box, the deluxe box.
The deluxe box comes in a box, comes mounted on a board.
Yeah,
The game though itself, there's not a lot of parts and pieces. There's the dice, the stones, which everybody gets to pick their own stone,
yeah,
and
it's funny.
then
I met another designer, Lisa. I can't remember her last name, but did you ever hear of Redneck Life?
I'm trying to think if that's the same one I'm thinking of, where like you're playing to have the most teeth.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Or you lose your teeth periodically throughout the game. And so I was hanging out with Lisa for a while, and when I talked, because she's had it manufactured right away, and it was interesting to me that when she saw my game, that was immediately what her brain went to. It was like, "Oh, you have very few pieces," and she's like, "Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That is great for
It's
manufacturing."
well, yeah. I mean, it's funny how even now. I mean, I did a game. I had it produced. We did a Kickstarter. And it's funny to me because, yeah, when I look at games now, I'm like, man, they could have saved a lot of money. Even like Splendor, right? That game could have saved a lot of money had they not put so much money into those poker chip gems that you
Yeah,
are collecting. But that kind of makes the game. And then,
yeah, yeah, and that's a designer decision you have to make.
yeah, and that's what's so funny because his follow up game is called Majesty for the Realm, and
Oh,
it's basically just a card game with some meeple and then money, like money tokens. I could easily just be punch out cardboard tokens, but he went with those poker chips again. And the cost of the game is expensive. And I'm like, but this game could be half the cost if it went away from those poker chip style things.
yeah. I think as a designer, you kind of fall in love with it. I remember I
Yeah.
talked to one company about my game, and like you said, my tokens are polished stones,
Yep.
and to me, it's part of the parody because the original game, everybody was pink or blue, pink or blue. That's all there is, pink or blue, and the plastic pegs, and you're plastic. And so to me, there's a little bit of the parody that in my game, everybody's unique and different and a natural stone. And that's where that's at. And when I talked to this company, that was the first thing they latched onto. It's like, oh no, you can't use polished stones. You've got to use plastic pawns. And I was like, oh, bummer.
Well, even like my game that we did was called Fences, and it was all punch out chipboard tiles. And it's a tile laying game, and we looked at doing it as 2x2 playing cards, but they just don't sit together very well. They slide around too much. They slide under each other, and
Ah, yeah.
just we're like, we can't do this. We've got to spend the money and go with the tiles, even though it makes the game cost way more to make. But you got to do what, like you said, you got to do what's right for the game.
Yeah, those are the decisions you have to make. I guess that's more the business. Well, it's the businessman versus the designer, and yeah, it gets tough. It's good when you're the only person.
Well, I
I'm not a
wish you
great
luck.
collaborator.
I hope you can get this game to a wider audience and a bigger, get a nice large production run going, because like Lisa said, like I'm going to repeat here, there's not a lot of pieces to it, so that makes the production cost a lot less, and because you don't have crazy stuff in there, you don't have a 200 deck of cards and custom
And
inserts
figurines.
and yeah, minifigs and all that weird stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny. I'm interested in maybe starting to teach a class at their local community college on making a board game, and just initially just to give people a really good look at the whole process of you start with this great idea in your brain, and then yeah, it's got figurines and cards and tokens and 27 different dice and you gotta right away you've got to think about the end product, which is that's going to be really expensive. You're going to have to sell that game for like 60-75 bucks with all those dice and figurines and cards and and so almost right from the beginning in the creative process, you got to see how can I pare it down. That's where I was really lucky. The game of life is brilliant in that the instructions and everything is pretty much on the board. That when you land on a space, it tells you what happens, and so you don't really need a whole lot of anything else. It's all on the board because every space has some words on it.
Yeah. Keeps the instruction manual small.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, well, back to your point, I was looking on Kickstarter today, which I should never be allowed to do. Um, I was looking at Kickstarter today, and there was a game that I was like, "Oh, it sounds intriguing." And then I look at it, and the print and play, which I was looking at, was kind of expensive for a print and play. But then I was like, "Oh, I wonder what the full cost is." Well, it has like 200 dice.
Oh,
I mean, the game is like 200 dice and a stack of cards. And I'm like, but with 200 dice in there, the cost of the game was like 45, 50 bucks on Kickstarter. And I'm like, I'm not going to spend that kind of money to buy that many dice to get lost around my house.
yeah. There's something the siren song about dice. I did make a second game. It was called Occupy versus the 1%. And in my game, I ended up with an awful lot of dice. That's where I kind of learned, oh yeah, this is getting really expensive. Um, but everybody got their own dice, and you had to have 6 dice for each player. And what would happen is that as the billionaires, the 1%, got more advantages, they got more and more dice, so they could go around the board even faster. And so it kind of really, to me, it illustrated, the disparity between just a regular person and part of the 1%. Is that the 1% are playing the game a lot faster and with a lot more dice than the other person that just has one.
It's an interesting concept, though.
Yeah, I liked it. I'm the designer, so I love all my products. But
Well, yeah, they're your babies.
yeah, they're my babies. But it didn't go over. People either hated the 1% or they hated Occupy.
And when those are the two options.
Yeah. And so, and in my brain, I was trying to like push the envelope about board games, you know, in terms of trying to, get a little political. And what I found was, people, I didn't realize board games kind of are escapism. You want to just kind of forget everything else and play a board game for a couple of hours. And with the politics of Occupy versus the 1%, it just sort of brought up, and people got angry at the unfairness, and therefore people did not buy the game. So I had to pull the plug on it. That was the business side of me. Said, nope, this is not selling. I sold about 12, I think.
Yeah, but you know what? You could put that easily up on your website, sell it as a PDF, and email it out. Put it up for $5, and you'd be surprised how many people will pay $5 if all they gotta do is supply a handful of dice.
Yeah, that's true. That's
I
true.
can
That's
tell
an
you right
idea.
now,
I like that idea.
I got $5 burning a hole in my pocket right now.
Yeah. Okay. That's the other thing. I'm so old. I've been trying to redo my website for like, you probably saw it. It's old. I've been trying to redo my website for like 3 years, and I just never. Because I hand make them. I'm running this small business. I have to pick up jobs once in a while. It's like I never get around to doing the website. And so, yeah, you're right. That's another thing that I was going to put on the website was, throw Occupy on there. I've got the prints. I've got like
Yeah,
500. So you're
well,
right.
there you go.
Just sell it.
Yeah, like I said, $5. Email out the PDF. Shoot, if all it takes is a bunch of D6s, I got a whole bunch of D6s.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an interesting concept for a game. I wouldn't give up on it. Keep working on it.
Yeah. It was a good experience for me. So just to get out another game. But there's that one. And then I've got like 3 or 4 ideas. That again, it's time management, just finding enough time to sit down to get them. It's like writing a book. It takes like a year, to
Oh
really
yeah,
work out the details. That's another thing I'd like to teach in this class. Well, just that it's like writing a book.
yeah.
You have to, you get an idea. It's so that what is it? Edison thing about an idea is 1% of the process.
Yeah.
The other 99% is sweat. You have to get an idea, but then you have to work on it and work on it and work on it and work on it.
Yeah, we
Um,
definitely, my business partner and I have a whole spreadsheet of ideas. And
ah,
right now we've got 2 games that we're working on that we're hoping to get out to Kickstarter later this year. Both of them, I
ah,
think, they both are very close to complete. So shouldn't be that big of a deal. But then we're looking at our giant list and like, oh, where do we even go from here? So we'll see whatever one kind of strikes our fancy next.
yeah, that's the other decision making. Decide which one to go for, which baby to to feed.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm telling you, that book by Tristan is just so good. And I read it, I couldn't put it down. And I was taking all these notes and looking up all these different games they were talking about. And then, like I said, I came across your name and I was like, oh, please still be in business. And so I went and I Googled it, found it, bought a copy, reached out to you because I wanted to talk to you. I mean, I think it's awesome that you saw that there was more to life, I guess, to be, pun intended, than the game of life and took it and ran with it.
Yeah, I think it was the influence of Dungeons and Dragons. First, I think the idea that happiness could be the objective instead of money, is the basic parody in my game. Well, first of all, the game of life, like I said, I think is brilliant in that life is a path. I think that's a very fundamental belief everybody has. Life is a path and things happen to you. And then to change it from money to happiness was like the first step. But when when Dungeons and Dragons started and they brought in, or I used the concept of playing a role and health points, it's the health points that really opened up the game, because now I could really do things like war and the consequences of drugs. You know, you might get happiness, but you might lose health. You get shot in a drive-by. You know, all these things that the original game really can't even put in their game because it doesn't have anything to do with money. So they've limited their game to just money, and it really limits this concept, which is life, you know. And so, but it was the Dungeons and Dragons concept of role playing that really opened up the game, I think.
Now, I think I should take a quick second here and put out the caveat that the game of real life may not be suitable for your preteens, as
Right. Yeah.
yeah, but for an adult crowd, and I mean, it's a very fun and an engaging game when you're writing your diary and stuff, and it doesn't take more than 30 minutes to play if just going through and making decisions about, do you do this or do you not do this, and stay true to your character and have a lot of fun with it. But yeah, this is not something that you want to take over to grandma's house and play with her.
Yeah, I put a PG-13
Yeah,
rating on it.
yeah, I would for sure. But it is a blast. I do enjoy playing it. Like I said, I've got mine mounted, and I like that the D6 in the game is not small. It's larger than a normal D6.
Oh,
So
thanks. That was again another, designer businessman decision. It's like, I want a big die if you
yeah.
can find it.
Yeah. Just because why, it's just one more thing to kind of make the game stand out. And I think that, little things like that are what make games stick in your brain. And the fact that that D6 is just a little bit bigger and a little bit louder when I roll it on the table is fantastic.
Thank you.
So, Chris, I'd like to thank you for being on my show today. And if anybody wants to reach out to you, is the website your best way to reach you?
Yeah, go to the website and then there's a contact page there. You can send me an email.
That website is gameofreallife.com. And while you're there, pick up a copy because you should. So thanks again, Chris, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me on.
As soon as I read it in the book, I'm like, oh man, I want to talk to this guy because this is an amazing game. It's really cool that Tristan Donovan just kind of walked up to you, did this on the spot interview, and you're in this great book. Like I said, the book is fantastic. I have loaned it out to friends who read it
It
as
really
well,
is.
and I think it's because it's not just a chronology. Like it kind of digs into a game.
Yeah, and he digs into some of the designers that are characters. Like that one guy that, would like hide his game ideas in a safe and he wouldn't let even
Yeah,
his coworkers see them or his employees because he was like a
yeah,
major mogul. And he was the guy who like stole the idea of operation from a grad
yep,
student. I mean, that was an amazing story.
yeah. It's incredible that this grad student came up with the idea of the metal touching or working through a grooved path. And if the metal touched, then it turned on a light. And he basically, like you said, stole it from the guy, turned it into operation, and the kid never got paid a dime.
Yeah. I mean, wow. Get vicious
And
out
the
there.
guy that came up with Clue sold it for a one-time payout instead of lifelong royalty check. And once his money from Clue dried up, he had to go back to work. And yet Clue is a massive game.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, the book is, I say it's great, but it's also kind of, infuriating when you read some of these stories about what happened to some of these early creators. But man, it's a great book. I'm glad you were a part of it. I'm glad we were able to talk about it because it is fascinating, and I look forward to whatever other games you put out, and definitely let me know if you go to Kickstarter. I would doubt you'd hit Kickstarter and I would notice. I wish you luck, and I look forward to Occupy versus the 1%. Get that PDF up there, and I will definitely buy it and mount it on another piece of foam core board right next to my Game of Real Life.
All right. Yeah, I'll dig into my computer and make sure the PDF's there. It should be.
Well, if you guys want to reach out to me, it's facebook.com/eatlunchandboardgame or email me at eatlunchandboardgame@gmail.com. And remember, board games build bridges.
Average Joe's Gaming is a weekly podcast brought to you by us. I'm Joe.
I'm Tom. We talk about all things game-related. In this hour-long podcast, you'll discover what has arrived in the game room,
which Funko Pop Tom just could not resist, and maybe, if you're lucky, we might get around to talking about games.
Might.
Tune in weekly. You can find us on all of your favorite podcast formats.
When you're gaming, why not be comfy? Go over to supportplayer.org. Click on the cards, pieces, and dice to get some merch. These t-shirts are some of the most comfortable I have ever worn. That's supportplayer.org, and there's a link on eatlunchandboardgame.com.